What is going on at the Walt Disney Company regarding Lucasfilm and studio president Kathleen Kennedy? That's been the subject of a great many rumors over the past several years. But as WDW Pro of that Park Place discussed almost 2 years ago now, he thought that she would be around through the end of Indiana Jones's production and release. Well, now that point is past us. And some additional news and updates since then have suggested that Kathleen Kennedy would be entering negotiations for her contract renewal, or in this case, potentially a severance, beginning next week. As it stands now, her contract is due to expire October 1st, roughly, of next year, 2024. But could there be something going on right now? Kathleen Kennedy and husband Frank Marshall are selling their Malibu home, a home, I might add, that was purchased after Disney acquired Lucasfilm. So you have to wonder, why sell this now? What does she know that we don't yet? So today, WDW Pro and I are going to have that discussion. Here we go. Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out over the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door. Pro, we have a few things to discuss today because we have an interesting news break that happened in the last 24 hours that obviously a lot of people are asking questions on. So let's get right to it. Initial thoughts. Here we are. Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall are selling one of their properties, and it happens to be the one that's in Malibu, one of the closest properties that they own to Walt Disney Company itself, at least the C-suite in Burbank, putting it up for $18.5 million after buying it back in 2015. Bought it, as a matter of fact, right around the same time that Kathleen Kennedy received her first official contract extension from the Walt Disney Company following the purchase in 2012. Bought it for $9.5 million, so they'd be about 40 minutes away from the Walt Disney Company while they were in town. Selling it now. What's going on?
Well, I think you make a great point that this was purchased around the same time that she was brought into the fold at Disney, as Lucasfilm was purchased and she was the president thereof. You know, we have been talking consistently now for months and months, not in crazy land, not out there in the, the Looneyville, but just talking about regular finances and regular situations behind the scenes at these companies like Disney. And we've been very consistent about the fact that we have been hearing from sources that Kathleen Kennedy was due for contract renegotiations in the third week of August. And then it was just a few months ago, perhaps, maybe even sooner than that, that I came forth and said, hey, same sources that are bringing this to us, and by the way, folks, these are rumor and speculation, of course, because, well, they're in the future, and we can't guarantee anything in the future. But these sources were saying that this looked like she was now going into a severance negotiation in terms of her contract. I don't know if that's 100% true or not. However, this is starting to line up now because, as you said, this home bought seemingly in a coinciding manner with being brought into Disney. Now that it's being sold, and now that we've been reporting this, we're 2 weeks out from the third week of August. So This seems to line up. I don't know if there'll be more properties that go up for sale from these two. But for now, I suppose we are the special counsel of the Kennedys, so we'll continue to follow this.
Yes, indeed. And in the article, there's nothing really spectacular in it in and of itself. It just kind of goes into the whole mantra of what's in the house. It's got the fireplaces. It's got the endless swimming pools, waterfalls, beachfront views everywhere. They're going to be selling it, or at least trying to sell it, for about twice as much as what they paid for it when they bought it. Good for them. That's a great...
I'm glad she's more successful in real estate.
Yes, I was just about to say that. Her and Frank have been more successful. But, you know, Pro, one of the interesting things about all this, when I kind of take everything into consideration, is the fact that Kathleen Kennedy, as I'm sure you're well aware, she grew up in Northern California, right? I mean, she grew up and she's worked in Northern California now for many decades before coming to the Walt Disney Company, because, of course, that is where Lucasfilm is still stationed. And I'm going to pull up something here to kind of show everybody, give you an idea, because we may not mention this enough, but I don't think geographically people really understand the distance between Lucasfilm and Disney, and why in 2015 you would think that somebody like Kathleen Kennedy, who would want to be able to have a place to stay for longer periods of time when in Los Angeles, with especially film productions on sound stages and things like this, that she was doing with Lucasfilm, now as part of Disney. But originally, here it is. If people don't know, that the beginning of that map right there, that is Lucasfilm right there. You can see my cursor moving. That is Lucasfilm. That is where it's been for some time in San Francisco. To give you a rough idea, that is, and granted, of course, she probably gets on a plane, but that is a 7-hour drive down to Los Angeles to get to Disney headquarters right there at South Buena Vista Street.
Right. For those of you on the East Coast, you might think of this as sort of it's the length of time it would take you to drive from the north part of Georgia to the south part of Georgia if you were going to Florida. Many of you out there have driven through Georgia as you try to go to Florida, so that's a great example of just
and that's
the
with no traffic.
Exactly. And you know, Valiant, I also think this is a key point too, because we often hear reports about Bob Iger being in Lucasfilm, or we hear reports about Kathleen Kennedy being in the halls of Burbank and all of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's not so simple, because we are talking about a 6-hour difference in terms of regular traffic. Now, I'm aware that these people are flying and all of that, but, you know, to hop onto your private jet or your company jet and go to the airport and then go to these studios, it's not quite as easy as just doing a teleconference. So
right.
I think that's also important in understanding how the dynamics of Disney and Lucasfilm work. But again, you know, I think we need to be watching, because this home is not the only property that Kathleen Kennedy has.
That's true.
So she has another one. I don't know if we want to go into where these are exactly, but I think it's suffice to say she owns a home that was previously owned by another celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
That one is not up for sale. We believe that she has a property in close approximation of Lucasfilm.
Yes,
don't think
Northern
that's for
California.
sale.
Yeah,
right. So so we're watching to see, is this the beginning, or is this just Kathleen Kennedy finally being very good at something, that being real estate?
Right. And I mean, look, this was, and I had this map up a moment ago, that little red dot is the Malibu house that's been listed. That's a 41-minute drive from Disney corporate. And again, the fact that it was purchased just a few years after the Lucasfilm acquisition by Disney, and right around the same time that she was renewed at Lucasfilm. So it's almost like, you know, she kind of waited to see how things were going to go. That was the year that The Force Awakens was released, as a matter of fact, in 2015. So she bought another house in Southern California there, closer to Disney, thinking, you know, she's going to be there for a while. She's going to have to be working in the studio side of things. Lucasfilm itself up in San Francisco doesn't have, to my knowledge, giant sound stages and full studios. Of course, you've got Skywalker Ranch, you've got all those kind of other things out there that Lucasfilm has in various places in California. But in terms of being boots on the ground and working, all that work is done in Los Angeles. So it made sense. Now she's selling it. And again, coinciding, as you mentioned, with the rumors that we had about contract renegotiation starting roughly next week, from what we understand, ahead of the renewal period that would be third quarter of next year.
No, you're right. It is next week. I had misjudged that. You're exactly right, Valiant.
Yeah.
What an interesting thing that comes out. This released on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. That is the day before the week that we begin in terms of weekdays. So we're 3 days out from when we believe possibly these contract severance negotiations begin. Wow.
Yeah, and to be fair, look, I mean, it could also just be a matter of maybe she's not in Southern California that much anymore. We can all speculate as to why. And maybe, hey, it's a good time to sell the house now. Maybe the housing market next year isn't going to be as good as it is right now. I don't know.
She may have found some place that has a better coffee cabinet.
She may have. But again, with the other property she has, and being the fact that she grew up in Northern California, I would speculate that were she to retire, she'd probably enjoy being up in Northern California more than Southern, maybe even out of state, who knows. But as you said, we'll have to wait to see if there are any other properties that she owns that start going up for sale or not. But that's where we are at this point. Of course, this is going to raise the specter of folks that, well, is this the end of Kathleen Kennedy? Of course, yeah. And look, I think to be fair this time, this given everything else that we know, especially now that you've got the Star Wars trilogy that Disney did is behind us. Star Wars has nothing concrete yet moving theatrically, although they are working towards, as we reported before, the Rey Skywalker movie or the Rey Palpatine movie. You called that about a month before it was made official at Star Wars Celebration.
That was the big announcement of Star Wars Celebration, I believe.
It was walking Daisy Ridley out on stage, and you had scooped it way before anybody else even had a clue.
And who knows if it comes to fruition, but we knew that she was going to be out on that stage. We called it. We told people. And, Valiant, what a hard knock life it is for Kathleen Kennedy, unable to possibly envision herself in retirement in Malibu. It's just not nice enough. It's just not.
Exactly. I think maybe this is taking an opportunity, realizing that, as we've said before, look, Kathy and Frank are now in their 70s. They probably want to start just doing what they want to do, enjoying life, and not deal with this anymore, especially after Indiana Jones collapsed in on itself.
Right. And one more thing, Valiant, on this, too. I think this also is important. We've been taking notice of the fact that Lucasfilm has essentially went radio silent.
Yes.
They had the Ahsoka trailer come out. That was necessary. It was almost certainly, scheduled by marketing way, way, way long ago. So when that came out, that really doesn't qualify. But in terms of interviews, discussions, conversations, public that Kathleen Kennedy has given, zero, none, nada. And the same thing for essentially everybody else at Lucasfilm. That studio is on communications lockdown, it seems, with the public. And this all is just occurring after the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and its, of course, historic flop failure at the cinemas. So I think you start adding all of this together, and perhaps we don't have the absolute proof just yet, but there's smoke here, and we'll have to see where that smoke is coming from.
So you've been talking about this for a while. You've had your sources telling you something is funny going on at Lucasfilm. I've had other people, I just don't want to say who they are, but people that I trust implicitly. They have heard information from people that they trust that something definitely is going on inside of Lucasfilm, although nothing specific as to what. But certainly things are starting to add up when we see things like this. I want to stress to folks that even if Kathleen Kennedy were to have her retirement announced tomorrow, I don't think, Pro, and I'm sure you agree with me, that doesn't mean that Star Wars is suddenly saved overnight. Certainly people will be happy to see Kathy walk out the door, but Disney is a flat mess right now on every front. It's going to take a lot of fixing to get this moving in the right direction. I know they still want to have this Rey movie come out in about 2 or 3 years. Of course, this is all dependent on the strikes, but that's where we are. Pro, what do you think?
Well, I actually want to ask you a question, Valiant, and put this really into your wheelhouse. In terms of Kathleen Kennedy potentially leaving, we saw this bump in the Disney stock following the earnings call. I didn't think the earnings call was good, and then you're right; it's been dropping since. We're back sub 90.
Yep.
Many times people think that Lucasfilm is this very big juggernaut of Disney, and that Kathleen Kennedy is overseeing this massive failure within Walt Disney, but I'm curious from your perspective, would it have any impact if she announces her retirement, or if it is announced for her? Would it have any impact at all on the stock? We already know that it might not have any impact on Star Wars because we don't know who would take her place, but what about from the financial side, since that's what you cover?
That's a great question. Honestly, no, I don't think it's going to have any measurable impact on the overall trading price. I think if anything, and people might be a little surprised and mad what I'm about to say, but you have to understand the normie factor out there. When they see, and when I say they, I'm talking about the investor class, the Wall Street class, the people that you hear call into those earnings calls on the Q&A side of things, they barely understood theatrical revenue and rentals until this past quarter when videos on YouTube, started kind of going crazy and media picked up on things, and all of a sudden you had theatrical failures across the board. Then they started asking about, well, wait, you're not really making money on this anymore. The same problem is Star Wars and Kennedy. Kennedy still has a perception in the normie public that she is this magnanimous producer that led Hollywood for decades, Hollywood's most powerful woman ever. has been stated out there by various magazines. They may look at that as, oh no, that means it's going to get even worse. We don't have Hollywood's greatest female producer anymore. They could actually view that as a negative because they don't understand it. Now, even with that, I kind of doubt it's going to have any impact on the stock price whatsoever. It's just not that big of a facet of the Walt Disney Company. It accounts for next to nothing. We're talking about fractions of a penny compared to the overall operating income of a company that big. It's a nice feather in the cap, and it's certainly heavily integrated into the Walt Disney Company, which is why they cannot just sell off Lucasfilm. And Bob Iger has said as much. They're not planning on selling any core assets like Lucasfilm or Marvel. That's not going to happen. They're far too integrated. But it's not going to move the needle, folks, and it's probably not going to rescue Star Wars. It all depends on who they put in there after her, and of course there's speculations about guys like Jon Favreau and things like that. We have no idea. But that's going to be one of the big things is negotiating her severance, I believe, right now, and her retirement, having that set up, and it may already be written in the stars right now as we speak, but we're never going to hear about it until they have a solid successor to come in and take over. And that may be where they are right now.
I, for one, hope that just beyond her coffee bar, that I'm sure will be quite impressive in her new homes that she is sure to purchase, I hope that she gets a home with a huge library to place all of her new awards that will be coming as she is sent packing.
Oh, man.
Because we all know that on the way out, she's going to receive so many presentations on the stage. Lifetime achievements for Kathleen Kennedy all around.
Oh, yeah.
But, folks, I'm here to tell you, I don't think that that's going to bother me one bit.
Nope.
Because as long as Star Wars is freed from the clutches of this woman who clearly has no vision for what it should be, fair enough, Kathleen Kennedy. Whatever it takes to say farewell, we'll go for it.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah. Hopefully, Disney will use it as an opportunity to get Star Wars on the right path and try to correct it. It's going to take several years to do that if Disney wants to do it. We'll have to wait to see what they do with it in a post-Kennedy era. But unfortunately, it's not going to be a post-Disney era for Star Wars. I think that's more the problem. Pro, thanks for joining us. And make sure y'all check out WDW Pro on his channel and on thatparkplace.com and on Twitter. What you got coming up?
X or Twitter. I don't know what to call it. But yeah, we're going to have a follow-up video to this. At the time of recording, we do not yet have answers from various sources. I think after this call, actually, we're going to get some more information. But I'm waiting to hear back about the Kathleen Kennedy situation. I expect to bring a video out tomorrow morning. So, folks, hang tight. We're working on this behind the scenes. And Valiant, I know you and I both are working on a big story that may see the light of day, may not. But, we're up to all kinds of stuff in terms of trying to bring out the truth about Disney. So, yeah, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, every single day over in the WDW Pro channel.
And make sure you join us Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show. Hope to see you there. Until next time, folks, take care.